Welcome to the Unexpected Podcast. This is Justin Mahwikizi, and today's guest is Liz Smith, owner of a business called Serendipity Yoga and Wellness. Liz, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to be here.
Same here. As we were talking before that, we know about your business for a very long time. You're a big member of our community here. And I just wanted to welcome you. And my first question will go, if I met third grade teacher Liz 10 years ago, what would surprise her most about the woman she's become today?
That's such a wonderful question to start with. I think that the biggest surprise has just been how many different hats I've been able to wear. As a third grade teacher, as a teacher in general, you wear a lot of different hats, ranging from nurse to, the friend to the person who's educating to the one who's taking care of the kids. And now my hats are all of those for all of my clients, but also the IT person and oftentimes, the maintenance team and the janitorial staff and all of that. So just the amount of roles that I've been able to fill and to the information that I've learned that I could not have anticipated that would be coming towards me because you don't know what you don't know.
That's right. That's the beauty of the owning a business, being an entrepreneur, is the many hats you wear. Now, if we go back, what happened inside you before you resigned as a teacher from teaching, and what was the one moment you knew that you were done with that chapter at least, and then go into the business owning yoga world?
Absolutely. I think there was just a moment that's very clear in my mind that I was teaching and I loved teaching and still do. But I had moved into an administrative role for the last few years that I was working in the school district. And it was not giving me all of the fulfillment that working in a classroom did. And I just sat there at 33 years old and said, I'm halfway through my life as a working individual here, right? Because 64, 65, retired from teaching. And I'm okay. Am I feeling the same passion I did when I started this journey 12 years ago? And for me, the answer was no, that it wasn't the same. And I had a role model. My mother is a middle school teacher. She still is. And she has so much passion for everything. And when I was looking at myself compared to her, I started to get a little concerned about where I was going and what I was doing. And so at that point, I stopped, took a look, and it came really quickly that it was time for me to make a change. What it would look like, I wasn't quite sure yet. I had been teaching yoga for several years up until that point as my evening job, as many educators have.
Right.
And had also been tutoring kids as another side gig at that point. And my husband and I sat down one night, had the big talk, and decided that it was a good time to make a shift and make the leap. And we, again, didn't envision what it would look like, but knew that it would have something to do with yoga, something to do with working with children and continuing that mission. And now today, it's been 10 years. 10 years later, we have Serendipity Yoga and Wellness, and a big piece of our mission is working with children in a variety of different ways, along with the rest of our community.
And you focus mainly on in the South Suburbs community, or what areas do what's your
Yeah.
portfolio?
So really our big focus is on the south suburbs of Chicago. I think part of the magic of what we do at Serendipity is keeping the focus local. That when we talk about building community, which I think if you talk to any yoga studio owner, that's a number one thing, right? They want to feel connected to people, and anyone can get yoga anywhere now. You can go online and pick up a yoga class for free. What's so special about being with other people? And it really is that sense of community. And so the fact that I've lived in Homewood for the last 20 years, the fact that I taught school in Homewood for 12 years of my teaching career, the fact that the studio is in Homewood and we work so closely with the other businesses and the individuals in the town, there's something magical about that. And so we really focus on the immediate surrounding areas and how we can have an impact not only in movement, because a lot of times when we're just getting to understand yoga, we think about the exercise aspect of it, but it really is a philosophy. It is an ancient philosophy that if you decide to go into it, it's your lifestyle. And we want to live all of those pieces of it.
It's great. Do you think serendipity found you, or did you create it? The name. Can you tell us the background of that?
So the name, my husband and I spent so much time trying to name the studio, wanting it to be something that was unique, meaningful, that stood out. And we were actually sitting on the couch back in the olden days, in air quotes, when you still had like the scrolling TV guide that would come on.
Yep.
And we're sitting talking about names, throwing them around. And the as it was scrolling, the movie Serendipity with John Cusack and Kate Beckinsale scrolled across the street. That was one of our first movies that we saw together as a dating couple.
Uh-huh.
And we both looked at each other and we just knew serendipity. That's it. So um, that was where the name came from. And it feels like every moment since then that things have been conspiring in the favor of the business. And doesn't mean that we haven't had struggles and challenges. That's all a part of life. And there have been lots of ups and downs. But to get to this moment, to get to where I'm sitting right now with you, that all of that had to happen in exactly the way that it did. So it's
How,
been quite serendipitous.
that's great. I think it's perfect. Every time I hear that name, I see your business sign. That's a great name. Um,
Thank you.
what uh, what about being a teacher prepared you to being a business owner? Because both sides have a lot of things, moving parts, and problems comes left and right. And so, how did that prepare you, and how have you faced the struggles of being a business owner?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing that the kids that I got to work with every day have taught me is that you just have to roll with punches, and whatever your plan is may not be the plan. And so in a third grade classroom, you write your lesson plans, you do your due diligence to make sure that you are prepared with the materials or that you understand what you're presenting. And then a child has an amazing question, or someone falls down and gets hurt, and everything gets redirected, and it has to be redirected. You can't force it to be anything other than it is. And that has been one of the biggest lessons as a business owner, is that I'm going to do my due diligence. I'm going to make sure that I am educated in whatever content I am presenting or whatever I'm trying to bring to life, but life is going to happen. And I just can't grasp too hard onto anything. I think COVID was one of the best examples of that, that all of a sudden my business, my life, my bread and butter is built on community in person with
Correct.
people. And
Yeah.
how do we recreate that like this on the dime, all in a weekend when we really weren't doing this just yet and being online together in the ways that we are now. And um, it's just, it's a lot of creativity and it's a lot of going with the flow. And if I always say, I can't be flexible as the yoga teacher and practitioner, and we're
That's fair. When you started Serendipity, did you have a team, investors? Did you apply for grants? For any entrepreneur out there thinking of starting their business, what would be your advice on how to approach it? Maybe working with the town, the business association. Tell us more about that storyline.
Yeah, absolutely. I think scaling has been the key to success. So I mentioned that I was tutoring as well as teaching yoga prior to even leaving classroom and leaving the school environment. And so when I decided to jump out on my own, at first it was just me. There was no overhead. I was jumping and running other people's studios and made sure that this was something sustainable. So I taught all over the south suburbs when I was had left school, and I was tutoring children and reinvented my tutoring program pretty quickly into this mindfulness based tutoring. So it wasn't just we're going to meet at the library and we're going to just like open your backpack and start with homework. We're going to come in, we're going to learn about your brain, talk about the nervous system. If they're interested, we'll work on meditation, and we will work on also executive functioning skills and organization. So it was really taking those things, starting with just me and not having a solid location, and then gradually scaling up. So very small steps. I always made sure that I could pay myself, because I think a lot of small business owners jump in and the
Yeah.
overhead hits you right away. And it's like, and now I don't pay myself. So I always made sure I could pay myself through tutoring and private yoga instruction. And that when we started and I took on the overhead of an actual physical location, that I knew that I was only bringing on enough team and staff that I could comfortably, they could bring in enough money to help cover the rent. And that way the studio was operating on its own at first. I was able to pay myself. And then everything since then has just scaled in accordance with that. And so there's now a team of 10 instructors plus myself.
Wow.
I have um, we have a marketing assistant as well as a business growth and development assistant working behind the scenes with me. And it's been very rewarding to watch it grow. But that's really, for me, that's been the key, is scaling and really paying attention to the finances, that aspect of things, and not biting off more than we can chew.
Great advice. Great advice. Great answer. What's a misconception people have about yoga instructors?
I think that it comes from a place of being very innocent, but that the yoga instructors cannot have type A personalities and may not be the most intelligent people, because we have a stereotypical view of yoga at times that, and it depends on who you talk to, there's different stereotypes within yoga and who can do yoga and who should be doing yoga. And we really work at the studios to bust those stereotypes and bust those myths that yoga really is for everybody, and that we can uh, really see the benefits and reap the benefits no matter where you come from, who you are, what your background is. But I have found that when people get to know who I am, they always laugh a little bit about, wait, but a yoga teacher, wait, but a yoga teacher. It's like, you can have a master's degree. You can,
Yeah.
you can be an educator. I always laugh because I love horror movies, and everyone always is like, you can't love horror movies. You're a yoga teacher. I'm like, you can do both. You can.
Oh man, during the COVID time, when your business had to reinvent itself, what surprised you most about yourself and the ability to handle that?
Quick pivoting, because it really was, there was so much that happened so fast, and we had to, as a uh, entity, we had to figure out, I'm forgetting the word right now, but anyway, in the yoga business, everybody had to learn how to pivot really, really, really fast, because yes, YouTube was around. Yes, people were posting their videos, but that really wasn't the status quo. And so being able to, I think I told my community, I'm like, all right, I need 3 days. I'm shutting down classes. I will figure this out. Give me 3 days and I'll get back to you. We called all of the other owners that I know, and we were all kind of scrambling, but we got up and we were running with virtual classes. I want to say the fastest in the suburbs. I can't prove that for sure, but it was just the like, give me 3 days, let's reinvent it. And the way we did it at the studio is we did live classes so that we could have people, really encourage people to turn on their cameras. We kept it very casual. Everyone's texts were in. It was so much. I mean, it was a lot of fun. I'm not going to lie. The village of Homewood was so supportive in all of it, because as soon as we had to shut our doors of the physical studio space, our first location, the village said, okay, as soon as it's safe to be outside, this is where we can host classes. And Isaac Walton right away was on board. And they're like, yes, once we have, stick with the guidelines, but you can do it here. And then as soon as we were allowed to be inside, the Homewood Science Center was phenomenal. And they're okay, come on in. You can host classes here. Here are the guidelines. Here are the rules. Let's do it. And it made everything so manageable to be able to really collaborate with our community of yogis, but also with the village of Homewood at large. And I will say that they've always been so supportive of Serendipity's mission to build community, of the business itself, and moving to our different locations and being able to support us.
That's awesome. Um, and I just recently came to know about the Homewood Business Association. I wish I had been part of it a long time ago. But it seems that they do support their base, their business base. And it sounds like from your testimony that is correct.
Yeah, so the Village of Homewood, the Homewood Business Association, two different entities, but both an integral part of Serendipity's journey that we've been on. I sat on the board for the Homewood Business Association for several years as the treasurer, and the work that they've done and the support that they've given has been amazing.
That's great. Now let's go to the human side. What still makes you anxious in your world today?
Oh, I think it's the same thing that makes me really excited. It's all of the unpredictability. And I have a lot of ideas that are always floating around in my head. And so it's so fun to sit with those ideas to bring them to fruition, but then realizing that some will work, some won't. The economy is always just doing its thing and it's all over the place. And I always recognize that yoga, being able to go to the yoga studio is a luxury. It's an important luxury, but it's a luxury. And so when times get hard, we have to, out of necessity, cut back on luxury.
Right.
And uh, so finding the balance between, wanting to make sure that we take care of our community and that our people know that we're here for them, and also knowing that this is my livelihood has always been something that is a line that I toggle between just really recognizing that I can't control the future. I can only do what I can do, but um, helping people see the importance and understand why taking care of their nervous system is so vital for every other part of their life.
Absolutely. I think it's one of the great hallmark of great entrepreneurs, being able to have scenario analysis in your own mind. This could happen, and being ready and having potential solutions to address it, even if it doesn't happen. And
Mm.
that's the biggest thing I learned when I left the W-2 world, and having to essentially, create my own questions and answer them at the same time while running a business. Would you agree?
Well, I would agree. And wouldn't you agree that you don't know what questions to even ask most of the time until you're in the middle of the circumstance? You're like, oh, yes, now I know to ask that question. That's something I love to work with people who are just trying to get their new businesses off the ground as a very informal mentor, just because, okay, now I know some things that you might want to ask just because, this got me into a little bit of a pickle at some point, and I want to save you from that same pickle.
That's right. That's right. But I found that the more questions or problems you solve, and the faster you start solving them, and there seems to be a synchronicity with your brain on how to take in a problem, assess it really quick, and come up with potential solutions. And so I always tell people, seek those problems fast, fail fast, and iterate so that your brain is accustomed to think that way. Um,
I know you are a big collaborator with others as well. And I've found that solving problems works so much better when we are, putting our heads together with other people
yes,
and,
yes.
and collaborating as opposed to doing it in isolation.
Absolutely. And entrepreneurship can be lonely, and building that community is very important. And being able to bring them in and help you strategize things. So I agree. I agree 100%. Um, wh- do you ever struggle to practice what you teach from a yoga perspective? And how do you handle that as the teacher essentially?
Yeah. I mean, I think that the one thing that we always have to remember about yoga instructors, yoga practitioners, is that we're all still human. And I think sometimes that there are unfair expectations placed on those who practice yoga, that they should never get angry, or that the experience of human emotion should be limited to only the good emotions. And I challenge that and say that we should experience all of the emotions, but we have the tools to allow those emotions to move through us a little bit more efficiently, a little bit more quickly. And so I will say that one of those challenges of practicing what you preach is allowing myself to have the full spectrum of emotions, because I too sometimes sit there and go, well, I shouldn't be angry about this. I shouldn't be scared about this. I shouldn't be this upset right now that this is happening. And it's like, oh, you shouldn't. Now use your tools.
Right.
Breathe, move through the anxiety, and let that go. Another thing that comes up too is that I mentioned earlier that yoga is about a lot more than movement if we choose to take it there. And so it's the breath work, it's meditation, but it's also lifestyle and choosing how we meet different situations. There are things called the yamas and the niyamas, which are the practices and the abstentions. So the things that we embody and the things that we abstain from. And so when you move into all of that, yoga is really your whole lifestyle, your whole being. And I found as a yoga teacher that we often move more away from the physical practice and more into some of those things that you can't see all the time. So I do I don't get on my mat as often as I would like to actually move my body because teaching all day, I'm doing it for everybody else. They're just
True.
not for me.
True.
So I miss that piece of it. It's a priority. I just graduated a program and now I have time to reclaim. And so getting on my mat is going to be some of that reclaimed time.
There you go. You mentioned your husband, and entrepreneurship, especially if you're in a married couple or you're in a couple, uh, uh, sometimes can leverage the other partner's help with it. How has that been with your husband? Supportive, and leveraging him through hard times to get you through the next stage.
Oh yeah, he calls himself the yoga husband. He just knows. No, I mean, he gives me so much support emotionally as well as physically I mentioned I do maintenance. Really, he does the maintenance. So I'm the scenes. So he does play quite a physical part in this, but he also practices. So he's on his mat a couple times a week at the studio, and having him there and visible within the community just means so much to me. Uh, But behind the scenes at home as well, as an entrepreneur, it's hard to turn off sometimes. And so work is takes over a lot. And especially because yoga is the lifestyle, uh, it's all the yoga all the time. And so he's incredibly supportive of all of that and really provides that emotional bolstering that I need to be able to continue to do what we're doing.
No, that's great. In fact, man doing yoga is something you gotta, get into because you're not exposed to it. And it wasn't until my old boss at the private bank and trust company, who was a lieutenant colonel in the military, in the army, but he was going through as a veteran. Your body gets beat up, and so yoga was a solution for him to start, his body moving again. And have you noticed that trend on your side from men joining yoga, or are you
Oh
still
yeah.
the selling and everything?
So I would say a good 40% of our population, 30 to 40% of our population at the
Wow.
studio, right, is done. We Serendipity partners with the local fire departments, local police department, and we do a lot of work with our first responders, which is amazing. And they've really responded incredibly well to having those yoga practices become a part of their work life as well as their personal lives. And I think that goes back to I mentioned earlier, overriding some of those stereotypes for yoga.
Yeah.
There is especially even though I'll start here, even though yoga is from India and only men were allowed to practice in the caste system.
Oh, really? I didn't
Yes.
know that. Okay.
No. So yoga traditionally is only for men. When it made its way to the United States and was popularized I would say it was originally popularized in the 60s, and it was more men and women because we can look back at the Beatles as an example. They were going to India, they had their gurus, and they were coming back and sharing the practices here. But I would say late 80s, early 90s, it was just all, I say, like skinny little white women that were doing yoga. And it gained this reputation that nobody else should be doing yoga. And really, time has shown that there's a place for everybody. And we really work at the studio to make sure that we're a representation of where we live. We live in Homewood Flossmoor, and our
Amazing.
studio should look like our community. And if it doesn't, then we're not getting something right. And so, what can we do to to make everybody feel like they have a place to be.
Perfect. What's one piece of wellness advice that you think is completely underrated?
Oh, that's a good one. All right. So I would say that I think that the biggest cliche that we talk about all the time is putting on your oxygen mask first. And I think there's a lot of people who at this point are just like, yeah, whatever, right? Or you can't pour from an empty cup. And it's like, yeah. But I think that those two cliches are cliches for a reason, that in order for us to run a business effectively, in order for us to take care of our families, we have to take care of ourselves first. Because if I'm coming at this with a dysregulated nervous system, if I'm anxious and I'm feeling on edge and stressed out, well, who's going to bear the brunt of
Yeah.
my my employees, my contractors, my partner, my children? That's who's going to get that. And so it is not selfish to practice true self-care. And when I say self-care, it's not just like I'm going to go run a bubble bath for 5 minutes. Yeah. But it's really creating these practices that allow your body to feel regulated. So taking deep breaths, getting on your yoga mat, taking 2 minutes in the morning to stretch because you don't have an hour, right? To dedicate to it. Everything counts. And I say this on every podcast I have the honor of being on, but it's my own business that you do not have to go to a yoga studio to practice yoga. It does not need to be 30 minutes of meditation. It does not need to be 60 minutes on a yoga mat. It can be 5 minutes in your bed, stretching out in the morning and taking deep breaths before you pick up your phone and look at it. And when you fill your own cup, when you put on your own oxygen mask first, you're going to feel better for yourself and be better able to meet the challenges of the day.
Listen, I come from the capital markets world and trading floors and investment banks. And when I was younger, I don't know if the kids are still doing it, but you stress yourself. You put in 120 hours a week. You're basically not really sleeping. But this is great advice. I wish we had received back then, and I'm hoping today the companies have improved and gotten better at communicating that aspect of making sure your battery is full, or at least charged a little bit to go out there.
Right. But it doesn't, 5% is better than 1%, right?
Right. That's exactly right. Is there a popular trend in the wellness world that makes you cringe a little?
I'm saying, I'm going to say this disclaimer first, that yoga is beautiful because it can meet everybody where they're at. So if you want to get out there and do yoga with puppies on your yoga mat, by all means, feel free to do so. If you would like to add weights to your yoga practice, by all means, do so.
Okay.
With that said, when we talk about the aspect of yoga that really is about tuning into yourself and getting comfortable with your own mind and getting comfortable with being quiet and sitting in your body and sitting with your own thoughts. Sometimes those bonuses that we add on to yoga take away from that intention, because it's a lot easier for me to sit and play with puppies than it is to sit silently and notice what I'm thinking about. And so I don't say this as a judgment, but we try really hard at the studio and in my own practice to really help people pull into themselves to get more comfortable being with ourselves instead of letting more things pull our attention outward. And so that would be my one thing that I feel we might consider working on.
No, that's fair. Do you notice that when people start yoga for the first time, especially if they're adults, and they're having to sit quietly with their thoughts, at first their thoughts are overwhelming, and they have to go through a process where their mind gets to be, it feels okay just not thinking about anything?
Yes. Yes. So first of all, a little historical context. When yoga was being practiced in India, or as it originally stood, it was done by the particular caste that would just set aside all of their belongings. They had no family, and their entire life was dedicated to practicing yoga, which is the pursuit of enlightenment. That's where meditation came in. It was to pursue enlightenment with no belongings, no jobs, no families. So, if we take that context and plop it into modern day American context, well, how is it fair for us to think that we are going to easily think about nothing when we have so much more to think about?
There.
So, I challenge it always that is that if we're looking at practicing yoga, if we're looking at meditation, it's not to empty the mind, but it is to become aware of the mind. So I really think of it as a metacognitive space where we are becoming aware of what we're thinking about and getting comfortable with letting all of that just play in your head. Because what happens for most of us is that we are either awake, on, and doing, moving, 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 going, 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 or we are completely zoned out in front of video games or the television, or we are, and there's very little time for us to actually process all of the data that has been put into our brain every single day.
Yeah.
And so the first years of meditation for so many people, decades of meditation, is actually just sorting through all of that data in your mind that has never been processed. Right.
Right.
And so you should just be spending those first years thinking about whatever you're thinking about and just get used to sitting still and only thinking. And if you get a moment where all thought goes away, yay.
That's awesome. Your work includes a few concepts. There's yoga, there's Reiki, there's Ayurveda. I don't know if
Mhm.
I'm pronouncing correctly. There's meditation and sound healing. If you had to remove all but one, which would you keep out of all?
This is a cheating question because I'm going to keep yoga because yoga actually encompasses
Ah,
all of
all
that.
of them. Okay. Okay.
So, because we're in yoga, you are working to, with in yoga, we call it prana. In other cultures, it's called chi or chi. So, Reiki is the channeling of energy. Yoga is working on channeling energy. When we talk about crystal healing, sound healing, all we're doing is moving energy through us.
Mhm.
Ayurveda is a part of yoga, meditation is a part of yoga. So, yeah, that's my cheating answer. I keep the yoga.
That's a good one. Has there ever been a student who changed you more than you changed them? They impacted you more than you impacted them?
Well, I can only pick one. I'll only pick one, but there have been many.
Okay.
But I had a fantastic friend and student who grew into a grandmother role for me. We started practicing before I was even a teacher, side by side, and she was in her early 70s at that point. 20 years later, she passed away at 92, and she was still practicing until the very last weeks of her life,
Wow.
many days a week till she got too sick to be able to visit us. And he was just the example for everybody in our community that, of what it looks like to live well and to live a full life. And she taught me so much about just the practice of yoga, the practice of living, and how to really enjoy being here and to be a little bit sassy sometimes. Don't always have to just smile.
That's a great answer, and I'm glad she made an impact on your life. What
Mhm.
lesson? What lesson took you? A life lesson took you the longest to learn in your life?
Well, there are so many that I am still learning, and this will be a continuous process. But I think up until this point, uh, one of the biggest things that I've worked on learning is that you can't make everybody happy, and not everybody will like you, and that is okay. That we are all here for different reasons, and that I will resonate with people that I'm meant to resonate with. My business will resonate with the people it's meant to resonate with, and that fortunately, there are options out there, and hopefully, each individual, each person who practices yoga just finds the right teacher and the right space for them.
No, that's a great lesson. It's to keep with yourself and to keep yourself level headed through the what most likely will happen. There will be a percentage of people out there who just don't resonate with your side, and not let it impact you. That's great. If we go to community, if we were to take yoga outside of the studio, actually, you have taken yoga outside the studio into schools, community spaces, and the like. Why has that become so important? Because it looks like it's still part of your program. Yes.
Oh, it's such an important part of our program. But not everybody has the ability to get into a studio, whether it is due to transportation, childcare, finances, limitations with your work schedule. There's so many different barriers that come into play there, that bringing yoga into other places makes it more accessible and more visible for everyone. Well, also, yoga studios can feel intimidating. And walking through the door, it's the same thing we see a lot with gyms, that this isn't the space for me. And if you see me, pulling up to the police department and pulling all my yoga mats out, then you might be like, wait, those people do yoga? That's cool. Or if you see me acting like a huge goof at the farmer's market, like that's what yoga is. Yeah, that's what we're doing. We are just having fun, and we are just moving our bodies in a way that brings us closer to ourselves.
If there are business owners, most of my audience is professionals, business owners, private equity firm, hedge funds, and the like. Some of them own nursing homes and assisted living spaces. If they were ever interested in the idea of bringing a company like yours to do a program with them, what should their process be? How should they think about it, and what would the program look like if they were looking to bring yoga for their clients or customers?
Absolutely. So it can really be and look like anything that they need. So we offer chair yoga, which is great, not only for assisted living facilities, but also for people who sit in chairs all day. If you're not working on your computer all day long, you need to learn some stretches that you can do to keep your posture strong, to help your low back feel better. So we do a lot of chair work. We It's always important for places to know that it's nice if we can have a quiet place to work that's nice and open. It's not a necessity, but it's always good to be able to set the mood and help people's nervous systems calm down. But I mean, we're working at the fire department, sometimes on the bathe floor, and sirens go off and they just got to jump up and go. So we can work with anything. But it's, like I said, very customizable, 30 minutes to 90 minutes, once a week to once a month to a one off, children to adults. But it's our job to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the group that's in front of us. And it's just everybody else's job to recognize that there's a need.
That's great. What is one book that you think everyone should read that has impacted you the most?
Ooh, it's a book called Breath by James Nestor. And it is full of scientific research as well as anecdotal research that explains to us the importance of breathing. And this author went on a journey with his breath and really has figured out just different shifts and changes in anthropological changes of our bodies, the shapes of our skulls based on how we breathe, what we eat, why so many more of us snore nowadays, why so many of us feel so much more anxiety. And he postulates that it all ties back to the breath. And it was a life-changing book for me.
Wow. I didn't know there was a lot so intertwined with breathing and how you breathe. That is
It's really fascinating when you get into it.
okay. Great. What's one thing people assume about you that's completely wrong?
That I can't love horror movies. No. Also,
Um,
um,
yeah.
I
No,
would just say that I think a lot of people think that I am really serious all the time. And that when they find out that you can be a little goofy and a little bit silly, that transfers over to yoga, that translates into yoga, that that is surprising, and then also lets everybody feel a little bit more at ease.
Good, good. Now, the last three questions, I call them the unexpected questions. We've done some research. So imagine your two cats, Trouble and Karma, are interviewed about you. What would they say you need to work on?
Respecting their boundaries around touch. I want to snuggle all the time, and they do not. Actually, Trouble loves to snuggle, but Karma is human. We call her human adjacent. She likes to be near you, but she doesn't want you to touch her. So, respecting boundaries around touch would be what they would both say.
That's great. If Serendipity Yoga disappeared tomorrow, what legacy would you hope remains in the people you've taught?
that they're that they are exactly who they need to be in this moment, and that they don't need to change anything. This breath, they're absolutely perfect. That's what you need.
That's a great answer. Now, the podcast is called The Unexpected. What is one unexpected truth you've discovered about life, that you wish someone had told you at 25?
Oh, I'm going to go back to it's not that serious. Like COVID, that shutdown really impacted me in the way that, that this is yoga, but it's also only yoga. Like that this is my business and it's my life, but also it's only business and it's only this moment. And things can turn around at any moment for better or for worse. And that it it doesn't have to be that serious. And that doesn't mean to ever downplay the trauma and the tragedy that we all experience in life, the suffering that comes through, and some so much more than others. But if we can find the moments to love and the moments to laugh and the moments to just let loose, we got to take advantage of those because we only get to remember this once, this one life.
Absolutely. Final question. Homewood, Illinois is what I call it. It's a hidden pearl and within the south suburbs. Um, what would you say to listeners who may be living in Homewood or around Homewood, why it's important to support the local businesses, the local small businesses in Homewood? Tell us about their profile and why it's important to support local business.
Well, I think the biggest thing with our small local businesses is that so many of us live in the community and are completely invested in the community. I always say that if I have to live in the United States, I'm living in Homewood. There's nowhere else that I'm going to be living. And because I do love our community so much. And so because so many of our small business owners are invested not only through their business in our community, but also they believe in the community enough that they live here, that they really put their stakes in the ground and love being here, that the more that we can support one another, uh, the stronger the community will be. And we have such an amazing park district. We have such an amazing school system. We have such an amazing business district that the more we invest in one another, the better it will be for all of us.
That's great. And if anyone is interested in either contacting you or coming to Serendipity for a class, how should they contact you, or how should they look the business up?
Yeah, absolutely. You can look up our website. It's fully updated all the time, serendipity yoga and wellness.com. Give us a call at the studio at 708-495-8643. We love talking to people. Just so everybody knows. I know not everybody wants to talk to everybody, but we love taking phone calls at the studio. So feel free to call us, email, Facebook, uh, Instagram, LinkedIn. We're all on there under Serendipity Yoga and Wellness. So feel free to find us however you can. I always say that, like, just where to find me. Just come find me.
That's awesome. Liz, thank you so much for your time this afternoon and telling us more about your background as well as Serendipity Yoga and Wellness.
Thank you so much for having me, Justin. I love the work that you're doing, and I just am very grateful to have been able to sit with you this afternoon.
Thank you so much.